Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Live from behind the blue wall of the state of New Mexico is New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. Today's topic, which I think is kind of near and dear to me for a weird reason, is mouse guns, pocket guns. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, if you've ever had to carry concealed, deep concealed, because free men don't ask permission, this becomes a carry option that is less than optimal, but can be accomplished, and no one is the wiser. A lot of folks will tell you that a 380 is too small for self-defense. I have no problems with the 380, especially with Lehigh Defense ammunition. Lehigh Defense, their stuff, if you've checked out Military Arms Channel or some of the other guys, some of the ballistic tests on it, it will do exactly what a 9mm will do. And maybe even a little better at certain distances. And I say that because of what it does, what the bullet does from Lehigh Defense. There are newer options from cheaper vendors that are doing something similar, so there must be something in that secret sauce that other people are trying to mimic. But where do I see mouse guns or pocket carry? You're at a job that you absolutely shouldn't have a firearm, but you need to have one. Just because, well, like I said, free men don't ask permission. You're wearing a pair of shorts or taking a walk and you don't want to carry your Glock 19. You're going to the grocery store or not the grocery store, well, either one, or the corner store, and you don't feel like strapping on your Glock 19. Before, in the mouse gun world, you were relegated to what a revolver would basically hold. So 6 to 7 rounds. That was before the SIG P365 came out, which inspired Ruger. And Ruger produced something called the LCP Max. Now, I have one of those, and I have had an LCP. I sold that to a dear friend. The reason why I didn't keep the LCP is I saw no point after shooting the LCP Max. So despite what I'm seeing from like the Honest Outlaw and everybody else in the blogosphere and the web spaces right now, Ruger has made a new version of this, and it holds 15 rounds. Now, these guys that have been shooting it, the Honest Outlaw specifically was saying it has a recoil impulse that makes it kind of unpleasant to shoot, but that's expected with a small gun. I don't know what they did between the LCP Max and the LCP Max Pro thingy that they have looks like it's been to some sort of performance center. I don't know what they've done between the two, but I can tell you firsthand, the LCP Max is one of the most mild recoiling pistols I've ever shot, with full power loads or with defensive loads that are made for lighter framed shooters, let's put it that way. I have had 0 malfunctions with it, and now I'm at the 300 round mark, but I've carried it before I broke my own rule, because usually for a carry pistol I have to have 300 rounds on it before I consider it, without a malfunction, before I consider it okay enough to carry, basically. Now my Glocks all have that in spades. I have a Glock 26, and I've carried it pocket carry too, but I'm a bigger framed guy, and I wear like fatigue pants type pants. Now the problem I have nowadays is there are certain times that you go someplace and you're sitting down at like a place for more than an hour, and my holsters are all comfortable. I don't have a problem with that. It's usually when you're sitting, or when I'm sitting specifically, that I print more. And that bothers people. Because they can see your gun then. Now, cops probably could do that. And if I was thinner framed, possibly, where my shirt doesn't stretch in weird places, then it probably wouldn't be an issue. But for someone like me, it is. Now, when we talk about concealed carry, I've talked about concealed carry ad infinitum, but one of the things you need to do is make sure you can carry and it fits your lifestyle. And that's where pocket carry fit for a long time with me, is that I couldn't have one where I worked, and I needed something small enough and concealable enough that I could put in like a center console, so that when I went into work to become a can of tuna, because you're not allowed to carry guns in schools, and that is one thing I disagree with, but I also, only because of the level of training I have, but I also abide by the law. And I've always abided by the law, and that's usually bit me in the ass one way or another, because free men shouldn't ask permission to do what's right. Now that I'm a free agent, I can carry my full-size pistols, and I feel a lot better, but an incident yesterday, or not an incident, an occasion yesterday, a special occasion, required me to wear something a little different than my normal dress. And with that, it made sense to go back to pocket carry. Now, the advantages of it, like I said, you can conceal it very well with today's modern mouse guns. Today's modern mouse guns are usually a lot better than anything you ever thought possible. The only problem you're going to see is the littler the gun, in reality, it usually means that it's going to be snappier. The LCP Max, what's weird about it is they've added enough to the back strap that makes the recoil impulse way lighter. And I say that because I've had a female shooter shoot my LCP Max, and they've shot the LCP. They own a 380 Bursa, and what they noticed was exactly what I said. They said the recoil impulse was less than their Bursa. So maybe they changed something in the Performance Center version of it, or of whatever Ruger's producing, but it's not that case. I have a friend who has bought his wife a SIG 938, which is like a pocket edition of the 1911. Now, I think you can get it in 380 or 9mm, and it makes sense. A 9mm would have been my preferred one if they would have made the Max in something like a 9. That's when I needed it. Nowadays, I'm looking at, if I'm going to do something smaller, it's going to be a P365. It's one that I've always thought about. But I'm okay with just running my Glock 19 because, well, my Glock's never failed. It has close to 2,000 rounds on it, which is very low for a Glock. But it's gotten into that point where the trigger feels better. That's one thing I will say about the LCP Max. The trigger is light years above and beyond what the LCP was, or their LCP2, any of it. It's better. But the other thing I do is carry an extra magazine, because you need another extra ammunition source. And 13 rounds of 380, if you can put those in the right spots, will stop someone. Remember, a pistol caliber is inefficient anyway for self-defense. It's like a compromise. It is the reason why they say there's no free lunch. You're not going to get the energy that you would from a rifle. You're not going to get the expansion you would from other calibers. You basically have a set amount of energy, and what they've proven time and time again with studies is accuracy matters. If you put the holes in the right spot, it stops the threat. And that's what you need to think about. And why I'm bringing up pocket carry is because it matters when you have different options for carry. A lot of people will focus in on their duty gun or their main one. That's great. But there's a place in time, or a time and place, as I said before, for a smaller frame gun that you can carry, throw in your pocket, and just go to the mailbox. That type of situation. Filio Noir said it best that way. But here's the difference. I don't feel underarmed with that LCP Max because now instead of 7, I had 11 rounds the first go, and I had 12 the second go with a second magazine. Or I have that, if that's the case. Now, in winter weather, you have jackets and stuff, but that's where the Lehigh defense comes in. But it also comes to shot placement. Now, the other thing that comes with something like this is if you're going to carry it, you need to train with it. And that's where the LCP Max came into my rotation. Is if I have to use it, can I be effective? And what I found is, by and large, yes. Up to 25 yards, I could do pretty well, pretty much what I could with my 9mm. Slightly better in some cases up close. What I mean by that is, if you think about how the length of a 9mm of a Glock 19, and you're kind of at a closer range, what happens is, if you move it in any direction, you're going to see it, that movement amplified. The same would go with the other pistol. But if you're at such a small framed gun, the chances of you moving it, at least this particular one in my hand, are way less. Because of its size and heft and everything that goes with the LCP Max, my finger fits perfectly on the trigger, where my Glock, I usually have to adjust a little bit once I fill the little dingus, as Tim at Military Arms Channel says. That little dingus, that little safety, it has always thrown me, because I've been a 1911 guy most of my life. Oh, well, not most, no. But up to that point, when I started shooting and training, to be concealed carry guy. And what that means is that if you don't practice, or you don't know exactly where your finger should sit on the trigger, there's this clock of a target that shows you what happens with your rounds. Now, some instructors will say that's total bullshit, and to some degree it can be. But it gives novice shooters a damn good idea of where they're missing or not hitting the 10 ring on the bullseye. And that's a good thing. And what I noticed from that list is that I had a tendency to over-insert my finger pad, my trigger finger pad, on a Glock. Because shooting a rifle, I was always taught to use the first or the second joint of my finger for a direct trigger pull. I've since learned, years after the fact, because that was what Dad had taught me to do, if you move your thumb to the same side as your trigger finger when you're squeezing, you get the same pull from the first pad or first joint on your finger, or the pad. So you get consistent pull all the time. It's ergonomics. It's how your hand works. But back in the day, Dad made a lot of sense, and it still makes a lot of sense for a rifle, in my opinion, to get an exact, crisp, clear pull, because your second joint's only going to allow so much of that. But on a pistol, you're too far in, and you end up cupping the gun or pushing it one way or the other. And that's what we want to stop. Because if you're in the point where you have to use something like this, you need to be the best, baddest you can. So those are my thoughts on the pocket mouse guns. My personal thing is a gun in the hand is better than one in the safe. I've talked about my LCP Max before. But as I've seen and heard more lately, especially in the last week, on the police radio in Farmington, New Mexico, about shootings and muggings and everything else, I thought maybe it might be a good idea to bring this up again and let everybody know. Like, share, subscribe, be great.